Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We're just going to get started in a second. Give a couple more people a chance to get into the webinar. We've got some folks in the waiting room. My name's Kit Cole, and I'm part of the team that's working on the redevelopment of the Guadalupe Quarry. And I probably know a lot of you out there. I hope I do. And we're really glad that you're here tonight. We're going to hear from some super knowledgeable speakers about advanced manufacturing. So just give us a couple more minutes and we'll get started. Justin, I see it's 5:29. So, yep, almost there.
We have the early birds.
No, I love it. Those are the people that sit in the front row in class and raise their hand at everything. Those are my favorite people. So while we're waiting, why don't I just do a quick introduction of your speakers tonight? I'll do another introduction for folks who may come in a couple minutes. Donovan is from the city of Fremont. We're super excited to have Donovan here. City of Fremont is a really interesting case study as a city for a city that has really taken on being a place that advanced manufacturing wants to be. So Donovan gets to go last in our lineup of speakers, but his case study of the city and his experience working with advanced manufacturing is really unparalleled. Greg is our second speaker. Greg works for a company called JLL, and he is a nationwide, if not worldwide, expert on advanced manufacturing. And he could talk for hours about advanced manufacturing, but we've limited him tonight to about 12 minutes. And what we're really going to hear from Greg about tonight is about what is in these buildings. So the buildings might look sort of anonymous from the outside, but what's happening inside the building? And I don't know about those of you who are in attendance tonight, but I'm not sure that I actually understand what's happening in these advanced manufacturing buildings. And when we talk about advanced manufacturing, what it really is and isn't. So I'm super excited to hear from Greg. Adrian is going to be our first speaker tonight. And Adrian's going to sort of give us a big picture of where we've been in the Bay Area relative to manufacturing, like way back where we've been, and then how the past on advanced manufacturing informs now the present and the future, and how through time manufacturing in the Bay Area has changed, and we're sort of entering a new era involving advanced manufacturing, and then what that could look like. And Adrian works for an organization called the Bay Area Council. And those of you who have been on our website might note that the Bay Area Council has been very involved in this proposed project in Brisbane. And Adrian just brings a ton of knowledge about the Bay Area economy and sort of what's next for the Bay Area. So Justin, I see we've got folks coming in. Shall we get started?
I say let's get going, Kit.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. So again, if you're just joining us, this is a webinar to talk about advanced manufacturing, what it is and what it isn't. I'm looking forward to learning a lot because I know I need some education and detail on what advanced manufacturing is. So we created tonight's webinar because we've been having open office hours. Those of you who haven't joined us, we'd love to have you join us. Justin's going to share information at the end of the webinar. There's also information on our website about our open office hours. You can come on, you can ask us anything. We're keeping a list of all the questions that folks ask, and we're answering the questions as best we can. But I can tell you, the main question that people ask when we have our open office hours is, what the heck is advanced manufacturing? Which is why we're having the webinar tonight. If you have questions, and I know you're going to have questions because this is a jam-packed hour, you can go down into the little box at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A, and it has a question mark in it. And we can see your question. You can type in your question, and then we'll try to get your question answered in real time as best we can. And we do have 3 speakers, and we are going to try to get done in an hour because our promise was 5:30 to 6:30. We want to end on time because we know you all have a lot of other things to do. After the webinar, if you continue to have questions, you can email me and Justin. Justin will share our emails. You can come to our open office hours and continue the conversation. You've provided some information to us about with your email, with your name. I just want to let you know we don't ever sell your name. We asked you to register for the Zoom tonight just because it means there might be less shenanigans on Zoom. Some people like to sort of bomb Zooms, and we wanted to prevent that from happening here. All right, so during the webinar, again, put your questions down in the Q&A box. Here's Justin's email. Here's my email. Here's my phone. Feel free to text me, call me, email me if you have more questions after the webinar, and we'll try to get those answered for you. Also join us at our Zoom open office hours. That next session is October 22nd, November 12th, and December 10th. So those are our open office hours between now and the end of the year. All right, so we've done the panelist introductions, kind of, but we're going to get going with Adrian first. He's going to talk about advanced manufacturing, the big picture. Greg's going to talk about facility needs. What do folks who are doing advanced manufacturing need inside the facility to make advanced manufacturing possible? And then Donovan's going to wrap it up as our third speaker, talking specifically about the case study of the city of Fremont. What kind of impact did advanced manufacturing and does it continue to have in the city of Fremont in terms of land use, in terms of employment, in terms of sales tax revenue for the city, just all sort of those aspects, job training. We're going to hear about that from Donovan. So shall we just jump right in? And let's see, today's meeting's being recorded. There are a number of people who asked us to record this, and it'll be posted on our website and on YouTube today, tomorrow, shortly, soon.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I have some travel tomorrow.
Okay.
But we will get it up tomorrow. That's the goal.
Great. Okay. So, a question already. I have to leave at 6. Will I be able to see the second half of the presentation later? Absolutely. Yes, you sure will. The whole thing is being recorded, and the whole thing will be posted on YouTube and then on our website. So Adrian, you're a big shot working on public policy at the Bay Area Council. And we're very proud to be a member of the Bay Area Council. And I know y'all have been around since 1945 and have lots of big employers in the region. What are you going to tell us tonight about advanced manufacturing?
Well, thanks, Kit. I haven't been around since 1945. I just want to clarify that. But I think the thesis statement for my presentation is really how there's a story here, and that starting with the gold rush, the Bay Area spent about a century building its industrial capacity. And then over the past 30 years, it's been decline, much like the many industrial centers throughout the United States, not just in California, but famously in the Rust Belt and elsewhere. But the stars have aligned in such a way that that the region and the nation and the state have really been kind of set up for this revival in manufacturing in a way that we haven't really seen in the past few decades. So let's get into that a bit by bit. So first, this slide, I want to talk a little bit about the history of manufacturing in the Bay Area. So not surprisingly for folks who know their Bay Area history, it really begins industrial capacity dominated by gold rush interests and extraction industries like smelters and logging and lumber milling and metalworks and brass fitting and all those sorts of things. And because the Bay Area was by far the largest economy on the west coast, west of Chicago until the middle 20th century, even after the gold rush tapered, the region's industrial economy continued to grow with increased focus on food production, food manufacturing, and the number of manufacturing jobs continued to explode in the first half of the 20th century in the Bay Area. You see there on the slide about the 230% increase in the number of manufacturers region-wide and across all 9 counties. And then between just 1940 and 1950, the region's total manufacturing jobs doubled. And then by 1970, California was the largest manufacturing state in the US, where it is a title that it's kept despite it's losing its relative dominance to other states in the US. And then beginning in the 1980s, as the region's economy shifted to higher value products and services, we start to see the beginnings of a decline. But before I get into that, let's take a look a little bit closer into San Mateo County specifically. So let's go to the next slide. So San Mateo County was part of this story throughout. So the county's industrial workforce approximately tripled between 1900 and 1920, particularly as San Francisco-based industries expanded out of the city and they looked out of Yerba Buena Cove and out of Potrero Hill, and they relocated to more opportunities and more space in San Mateo County. And I got a couple great pictures here that I thought that would be good to include, like the workforce of the Steger Terracotta and Pottery Factory, that's up on the top. The Whittier Fuller paint factory, that's the middle photo there. Columbia and U.S. Steel had some piping and sheet metal fabrication in San Mateo County. And then there's the Redwood City shipbuilding capacity, and that's a photo down at the bottom. Let's go to the next slide. Then after about a century of growth, over the past 30 or 40 years, we've seen manufacturing decline. Again, not just in California, not just in the Bay Area, but across the United States. So let's see, a big factor that factored into this, and you can see this big collapse right around 2000. What happened around then? Well, that's when China enters the WTO, the World Trade Organization, with favored nation status. That resulted in a complete global reorganization of manufacturing and supply chains. And during that window, the San Francisco San Mateo County Metropolitan Division, which is the economic unit where these things that's lumped up with San Francisco. That's how the Fed measures economic data in these economic units. That region, San Mateo County and San Francisco, lost roughly 50% of its manufacturing jobs, despite the county increasing in population by 200,000. So it not only lost jobs totally, but it also lost manufacturing relative to its full size of its full economy. But despite this, there were some sub-industries that continued growing in San Mateo County, like medical equipment and supplies manufacturing, and some food manufacturing has proven resilient and even shown some modest growth. And then today, about 20,000 manufacturing jobs are still in San Mateo County. Let's go to the next slide. So I believe that I mentioned earlier in the thesis that I think we're at the outset and the beginning point of a revival of manufacturing in the Bay Area and in California and in the US. Furthermore, I think this is a very good thing. So why do I think these things? So the first point is that there's been an emergence of a bipartisan consensus nationally and in the state for support for reindustrialization policies and industrial policy, including new federal funds and tax incentives for investments in domestic manufacturing. Just yesterday, J.P. Morgan Chase announced a $1.5 trillion, with a T, trillion-dollar investment in advanced manufacturing in America. That kind of announcement is absolutely downstream from the consensus that began in the Biden administration, but it's continued. Though the parties differ on how to do this, it's essentially a bipartisan consensus that America needs to do better at bringing back manufacturing capacity to the country. Now, California wants to be part of this game for some fairly obvious reasons. Manufacturing jobs tend to be really good middle-class jobs, good for middle-class workers. And critically, they have a very high multiplier effect, meaning not only do you get the job and the tax revenue from that job and the spending from that job, but that spending creates a lot of other jobs. It's a good multiplier effect, all of which allows households to prosper, families to grow, schools to not have to shut down. Like we've been seeing schools closures in my local school district because of population decline. and all of the good things that we want from public services if they have adequate tax revenue, good healthcare, good parks, all those things, good transportation systems, all those things. We need an industrial base that is focused on the future economy, just like 100 years ago, the leaders of the Bay Area invested in the industrial base of their future, which created the Bay Area that we've all grown up in and all know. And there's another reason why California, and particularly the Bay Area, is a good fit for these industries, and that's climate change. So our electric grid in the Bay Area is now 95%, some years 100% greenhouse gas free through the blend of various GHG-free energy sources. By contrast, our greatest competitors for these jobs, places like South Carolina, their grid produces 244 grams of CO2 per kilowatt. In Virginia, it's 288 grams. In Texas, it's 414 grams. It's even higher in Florida. So California likes to tell the world that we're a leader in climate change, but we can't do that if that claim is conditioned on us having no industry. So part of us talking the talk, as well as walking the walk, is showing that we can actually build things and do things and have a real economy while also maintaining a very clean grid. So, which has led to California leaders the past few years, after being feared of fearfully lagging other states in several of the federal investments, performing on several of the federal investments for advanced manufacturing, particularly semiconductor manufacturing, but others as well. The state leaders have enacted several different um, measures to speed manufacturing projects in California. So these are starting to take effect. So that's the landscape. You've got 100 years of manufacturing growth and investment, followed by some shocks to the manufacturing economic landscape starting in the 90s and then really peaking in early 2000 with China's entrance to the WTO. But now, an emerging consensus for bringing back manufacturing to the United States, and California is particularly well suited, and the Bay Area particularly well suited to bring back advanced manufacturing here, and doing so would be in our interests. So that's why the Bay Area Council's been excited about watching this project and others like it show interest in growing in the Bay Area. So with that, I'll kick it back over to you, Kit.
Great. Thanks, Adrian. I think your point about the cleaner grid is really well taken, and you had a bunch of numbers that you sort of reeled off there quick. But one of the things that I think about a lot is, do we want the manufacturing happening here in California or in another state which might not be using electricity that's as clean, which might be impacting the natural world, biodiversity more than folks might here in California?
Yeah, and not only that, but I'll go ahead and mention that it's not just greenhouse gas reductions, as important as that is. And the important thing about greenhouse gas reductions is that it's not something that you can just relocate to another state. Like the atmosphere doesn't care where the GHGs are emitted. So just pushing it across state lines does not do the planet any favors. But it's more than that. California has stronger, we've got we've got a whole infrastructure in place for environmental regulation that other states don't have and that we didn't have during our first round of industrialization. I'm talking about things like regional water boards, the air districts, the state EPA and the federal EPA, resource conservation districts, and the Clean Water Act. So we've got a lot of protections in place to make sure that this generation and this new round of reindustrialization looks nothing like the first round in terms of impact on the environment.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks so much. All right. So Greg, you're up. Greg's gonna talk about what is happening inside the building and the facility needs for advanced manufacturing. And just, you can read the slide there. Greg's an expert on this and works for a company called JLL, which is, I think it's a worldwide company. And Greg, you're speaking all over the world right now about advanced manufacturing. So we're excited to hear from you.
Yes, and I often cover a lot of what Adrian just covered, but not as well. But one thing I would like to chime in just before I jump into what goes on inside of the box is the fact that, you know, California is 14% of the country's economy and has only seen 1% or just over 1% of the new investments in manufacturing that we've seen since 2020. So what we're you know, the threat is that, and my biggest fear as a Californian and a family that's been in California since the 1880s, is that R&D and all the innovation that we have in the state follows that manufacturing, just like we did see with the offshoring of electronics manufacturing overseas. So that said, diving in on what goes on inside of the box, what a couple factors that we've seen as we analyze the country and the state for viability from a manufacturing perspective. We usually look at three key themes, and those we call them the three Ps. It's people, place, and power, right? So California and Brisbane and this market specifically has a great people story. Not only its current inhabitants, but its proximity to San Francisco and the Great San Francisco Peninsula. From a place perspective, we've got access and a quality of life that continues to produce more inbound migration and talent than anywhere else in the world. And then the final piece is power, right? Electricity is key and critical for many of the processes that we'll see. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what those look like. So the average age, let's just say the average age of a manufacturing facility in this country is 55 years old. The same age, by the way, as the average welder in the country. But what really drives manufacturing demand and what's critical for manufacturing is purpose-built modern industrial facilities that, if you go to the next slide, we describe it a little bit, right? When we think about industrial, this is kind of the broad spectrum of what we're thinking about. There's more of the innovation R&D space. There's advanced manufacturing, which is what is being contemplated here. And then warehouse distribution, which is the, you know, how finished goods get delivered and how we receive packages at home. But what really, you know, these buildings often don't look too different, right? The modern concrete tilt-up industrial facility is really four walls and a roof for a purpose. It affords a manufacturer or the occupier a ton of flexibility of what can go inside of the box. So a typical advanced manufacturing building typically will have, you know, the floor area will be predominantly the manufacturing space or open space for their production lines and whatever widget the user decides to assemble. Typically in this area, what we've seen more prevalence in is of server manufacturing. It's become a priority to develop and build servers in domestic content, as AI has become a national security concern of this in the previous administration. So the semiconductors, the GPUs, the actual servers themselves are being assembled not only in this country, but here in the Bay Area. That operation is typically just a light assembly operation that uses a lot of power. That power isn't used for the assembly of the servers, though. It's used for the testing and validation of the servers. The same can be said for robotics. The robotics industries that have humanoids and other robots that are being assembled and tested here. It's a very heavy power related use, but it's not for the actual running of the robots or the assembly of the robots. It's for the testing and validation of those robots. So think about a light assembly type operation with a data center inside of it that's using a robust amount of electricity. So it's not the dirty uses that we saw in the early stages of industrial growth in California. Most of these facilities and most of the occupiers want the greenest of facilities. So LEED Gold, LEED Platinum. We tend to see very green related facilities, with solar and battery powered, to create a more robust power, and then a greener power solution for the enterprise. You'll see electric vehicle charging stations for not only the workforce, whether they're frontline workers, with final assembly, or the engineer designing the product in question. We'll see, the competition for people is fierce, and creating a quality workplace with electric vehicle charging, amenity space, outdoor areas. These are critical to attracting and retaining talent and people across the ecosystem. Going to the next slide, to dive into a couple of different uses that go into these facilities. So there's R&D and research and development, and it's indicated there, and usually that's prototyping, rapid prototyping. That usually scales into a pilot line, which takes what you've iterated on, and you continue that iteration and improvement, continuous improvement of the product, but you're actually producing it at close to final product. Sometimes you'll use the pilot line for your initial production, but then that leads to the full scale manufacturing, and that's typically what we see go to lower cost geographies, although robotics and AI are enabling that to really occur anywhere. And then finally, there's the CGMP, which is what you'll see in the pharmaceutical world, often seen in our backyard in South San Francisco, right, where you're in a fully certified good manufacturing facility that's approved by the government. So keep going to the next slide. And what goes on in those footprints? Well, it varies. Every company's different, right? But typically you'll see about 250 one person for every 250 square feet in the R&D, on the R&D side of the equation, and you'll often find even fewer density in people in pilot line production, and even fewer in the GMP side of the equation. So we're not talking about densification from a people perspective. We're talking about for a facility of this magnitude, we'd be talking about a few hundred to 1,000 high-paying jobs for typically what will end up happening here is more along the lines of pilot line, and you may see some robotics production here. So that's really the mix of what goes on in these facilities. And again, we're not talking about tremendously intensive operations that are using a lot of gases and anything else other than our electricity, as provided by PG&E. So with that, I can turn it back to you, Kit,
Sure.
unless there's any questions.
I just have a quick question, Greg,
Yeah.
about I think might have been in the previous slide, but there's a word that's used a lot and I don't really understand what it means, and it's tinkering. I mean, I know what tinkering is when I'm you know, my husband's out tinkering in his wood shop, but what does tinkering mean in the context of advanced manufacturing?
Well, it's exactly the same thing, right? So what we're just seeing is the demand, whether it's AI, you know, or robotics, right? The demand that we're seeing is for facilities where you can physically touch and manipulate and improve your designs. And so these are jobs that need to be in a building. They're not jobs that can be done remote. They're jobs that are done locally, and they're good paying jobs that enable you to um, for you to manipulate and improve upon your designs.
Thank you so much. All right. So Greg, we've heard from Greg, we've heard from Adrian, we've got the history of advanced manufacturing in the Bay Area. We have what the building needs to be in order to make advanced manufacturing work. And our next speaker is Donovan, who knows really well what those buildings need to look like and where to site them. So you work for the city of Fremont. I don't know if everybody can see you have a city of Fremont polo shirt on, so you're showing your city of Fremont loyalty. And we're super glad that you're here. And you know a whole lot about advanced manufacturing because this land use is really widespread in Fremont and it's desired by Fremont, which I think is really interesting. The city has made a policy decision to actually go out and proactively capture advanced manufacturing. So I can't wait to hear how it's going in Fremont.
Thank you very much, Kit. And, you know, I really, one of the things that enticed me to jump on this webinar, aside from the fact, you know, I do love talking manufacturing and sharing some of the great work we're doing in Fremont. One thing I think that is really telling to how much Fremont values manufacturing is the fact that Greg Matter was on my interview panel when I interviewed to join the city. And so I think, you know, putting a manufacturing real estate expert is just really kind of telling of the city's priorities. And it's a strategy that's really paid huge dividends for the city, the community, both from a kind of economic development, certainly standpoint, but also just from employment opportunities, diversity of employment opportunities, revenues for the city to be able to pay for critical city services, whether it's police and fire, or parks, or library, schools. And it's something we're really passionate about. So I'm happy to share just a little kind of piece of that, and of course available for questions if there are any follow-ups.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So I know as you're getting started, was it just manufacturing month, manufacturing week? Where were we?
Manufacturing Week. So the first Friday of October is National Manufacturing Day. We're in the 14th year of doing it, and Fremont has participated since the very inception. We actually, out of several thousand communities around the country, we actually host the largest manufacturing day, or at least city organized manufacturing day event in the country. And so much so that we've had so much demand from both schools and employers that we've had to extend it to an entire week called Fremont Manufacturing Week. And this year we had 17 different company tour locations, over 500 students ranging from, you know, elementary school age to, you know, from our local school district all the way up to graduate level engineering students at Cal State East Bay and San Jose State and Santa Clara. So it's a lot of fun. I get to tag along on several of the tours, and it just really reinvigorates the why piece. One other thing just to share, you know, I think kind of stating the obvious, I am here in my city of Fremont capacity, really just to kind of share Fremont's lens. And so I hope to give you a little taste of that today. Next slide. Innovation in Silicon Valley has really come a long way from, you know, its foundation, certainly from a real estate standpoint, if nothing else. We like to think about the romanticized, early Silicon Valley days of Apple and Hewlett Packard and Varian and all these iconic companies, being formed in the suburban garage. Today, that would not work for both zoning purposes and also I don't think a lot of people would take you seriously. And a lot of that innovation that occurs is now in these, relatively kind of nondescript buildings, right? Like if you drive through a Fremont industrial area, you'll see all these, tilt up, industrial buildings that, you can definitely play around the margins and adding glass and, and walkways and great landscaping elements and stuff, but you don't necessarily know what's going on inside. And that's kind of part of the fun. You could have 5 buildings, in a row and go into one and they're building cutting edge robotics. The next, it's a new battery design that, if they're able to get it commercialized, can really improve the efficiency and performance of batteries in all kinds of applications. And then you go in the next one and they're developing autonomous robo taxis and electric robo taxis. And then in the next one, it might be, flying air taxis and all kinds of really cool and leading edge stuff that is being done in Silicon Valley. And I will just say, I think we really over indexed to office. We overbuilt office. We undervalued and underappreciated the importance of having an industrial building stock and having places for companies that are actually making things to do it. You can't build robots in an office. You need actual flexible, high utility space. And today that is the modern industrial building. Next slide. So I always like to take it back to the why, and in Fremont, I am very fortunate to lead our economic development team and the smallest department within the city, but we cover a lot of ground, everything from supporting small mom and pop businesses all the way up to, working with global Fortune 100 companies and larger development projects. And it always comes back to this, we are there to improve the quality of lives for our residents by creating jobs, bringing in investment that ultimately will support the city's ability to provide services. In order for us to hire more cops, in order for us to build and maintain parks and run our libraries and certainly support our education system, we need resources, and those resources come by investments into the community. In fact, just kind of big picture, the cost of providing services goes up about mid-single digits every single year. So if we're not actually bringing in revenues commensurate with that, cost of services that is increasing on an annual basis, we're actually losing our ability to provide services, and we're having a degradation of services. And so in order for us to kind of continue providing the high level of services that our residents have come to expect, we need to continue to get investment and reinvestment. And that's a big driver, certainly, of a lot of the work that we are doing. Next slide, please. Okay, so why is Fremont all in on manufacturing? I think it really comes down to 3 things. First and foremost is the people. Manufacturing is really the best way to reduce income inequality and provide employment opportunities for people of all walks of life, whether they're first generation immigrant, non-native English speakers, different levels of educational attainment. It is really the closest to a meritocracy that we have from an employment standpoint and accessibility standpoint. And when you go and walk a production floor in Fremont, you might see a technician with, associate's level education working alongside a PhD research scientist. And that's really very unique to manufacturing and not something that you see in a lot of other industries. Not to be a downer, but the Bay Area has among the highest rates of inequality in the developed world, not even just in the United States, but across the developed world. And we've really seen a hollowing out of the middle class, and a lot of the working jobs have gone away. And manufacturing is, to Adrian's slides earlier, I think was a huge part of that. It's not the only reason. And so if we're going to really improve equity outcomes, we need to get that missing middle going. Of course, second is the economy, and Adrian already hit on this. The economic multipliers of manufacturing are extensive. The supply chains, the cluster effect of that you see when a factory is established, or you have a new R&D outfit. They're very substantial, and can really actually be self-sustaining and self-fulfilling in a great positive reinforcement way. And then lastly is the innovation. We really pride ourselves on being the hardware side of the bay, where companies come to scale. We liken ourselves to the modern Silicon Valley garage. And a lot of that innovation is taking place in Fremont, and we've been the beneficiaries of it. Next slide, please. I think we've talked about several of these already, but I think we're seeing both at the national level. There's a lot of kind of nationalism, national security interest, and just pure economic interest of trying to bring back our industrial roots, industrial heritage, because we're realizing the error of our ways of kind of moving so much of that overseas. And it's challenging, but we're seeing just unprecedented levels of reinvestments that are occurring. Unfortunately, to Greg's point, most of that is occurring outside of California, but we have shown that if we are intentional and we can, find and create the right opportunities, that we actually can win and bring back a lot of that prosperity to not just California, but specifically the Bay Area region. And so there's a localism, there's a regionalism element here that I think really can't be understated. I also really want to point out that you have different types of we talked about the different types of or different levels of economic multipliers. You also have different levels of local fiscal impact for your local government by different industries. And manufacturing by far and away is a huge disproportionate revenue driver compared to other commercial real estate types. And I'll get into that here shortly. Next slide, please. So this is, to me, is just most telling. And actually this slide is the data that's feeding this is at the peak of auto sales in 2022. So it's actually a little bit outdated. It would look even more extreme now. Fremont has one of the largest auto malls in certainly Northern California. We also have the 7th largest outdoor shopping mall in the country with Pacific Commons. And our industrial areas just greatly outperform in terms of the revenue that they provide to the city. And losing our industrial base would be like the equivalent of getting rid of our entire police department. It is that significant. It's not just from one big employer. It's actually from a myriad of different advanced manufacturing operations from a variety of different industries, ranging from electronics and semiconductor, electric vehicles, biopharmaceutical manufacturing, the full gamut. And the reason for that is manufacturing there's multiple opportunities to bring in revenues for a city from a manufacturing operation. The first is when they're purchasing equipment, there's a use tax that can be associated with those big equipment purchases. Sometimes building out a new facility can run into the hundreds of millions of dollars even. And so those are major revenue drivers. And as the operation gets kind of established, there's kind of regular recurring upgrades to the facility. And every time there's an upgrade, that's new equipment that's being purchased and more revenue. Also, if the business has a point of sale, you can also get sales tax on some of this equipment that's being sold. It does vary based on industry and the individual business, but that can be really substantial. And then lastly, any of the equipment that is in the factory that is part of the manufacturing operation is actually assessed a business personal property tax. And so this is a bit of an extreme example, but to give you a little bit of context, the Tesla factory has an assessed value of about $100 million from when, you know, it was originally purchased following the NUMMI closure. But the assessed value of just the robots alone in that factory is over $3 billion. And so that's $3 billion worth of property tax assessment that is, you know, paying millions of dollars a year to our school district, or certainly our county and the city. So,
Donovan, I know you have a lot more slides to go through, but can I ask a silly question?
yeah, what's up?
I know that sales tax is super important to cities,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because property taxes, for a variety of reasons, go to the state and then are reallocated. Was this actually part of the city's strategy to attract advanced manufacturing and manufacturing in order to support the city's finances?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it continues to be. And in fact, it's allowed us to really relax and loosen our zoning code on other commercial uses because we don't have the same interest in sales tax capture. You know, where it's like we for example, we would be very comfortable replacing a big box retailer with a gym that doesn't provide any sales tax because it's an amenity to our residents that's, you know, valuable, but also because we're not relying on, you know, some of those other you know, kind of traditional commercial activities for the bulk of our sales tax revenue.
Yeah, super helpful. Interesting. Really
Yeah.
interesting. Please continue.
Yes.
Thanks for answering my question.
Of course, yeah. So Greg touched upon this already, but you know, a lot of the leading industries in our region are also very present in Fremont. And one of the sectors that I am most proud about is that we are the #1 city in the country for clean tech jobs, both by number of firms and by total employees. And you know, certainly Tesla is a 900-pound gorilla in the room with that, but we actually have an immense diversity of companies, you know, ranging from, you know, utility scale, energy storage, to hydrogen generators, trying to find out, you know, basically cleaning our grid and helping to improve mobility and ultimately advance us into the future. We also have large biopharmaceutical manufacturing operations, certainly a lot of semiconductor, which is, you know, now really getting a lot of focus again with the global supply chain concerns that have been happening. And a number of emerging industries. Robotics is kind of the next frontier that we're seeing, and it's really interesting and fascinating to be at the leading edge of these major novel and technological advancements. Next slide. Here's a very quick case study. I had a few of these, and Kit, you know, had to dial me back here, but this is
Well,
a
you had
project.
a lot of good examples.
I know,
So maybe
I know.
we'll have another webinar and you can do all your good examples.
This is to give a sense of, you know, a potential of, you know, advanced manufacturing project and how it kind of comes together over several years. So Pacific Commons South is a major industrial campus that spans 1.7 million square feet over 10 buildings. 7 of the 10 buildings are leased for manufacturing operations. And the total revenue from this project is quite substantial. You know, you have just a, you know, pretty high reassessment in value from, you know, this being kind of underutilized or vacant land to actually being a functioning industrial campus. There's also sales tax generation from several of the companies there. I can't disclose, but that actually is a real major revenue driver. We have multiple facilities here, you know, including Quanta and Meta and Bloom Energy, who have just in a single building put more money into improvements for their manufacturing and R&D operations than the entire campus cost to build. And again,
Wow.
there is a property tax assessment to that. There's, many cases a use tax associated with that. So it's a real needle mover. This project also added a lot of important infrastructure and amenities for the city. So it extended, at least has a de facto extension of the Bay Trail. It added a number of kind of green infrastructure components, and really kind of helped provide a jolt to an area that had been a little bit kind of underserved, or we had a lot of more tired building stock that is now getting reinvested in and reinvigorated. We're seeing a lot of companies now kind of clustering or as close as they can get to this new campus.
And I really like that there was public benefit put in here too, right? There's a multi-use public trail. It's not the economic drivers or the environment. It's trying to incorporate all of it into the project for the betterment of the area. Yeah, thanks. That's a good example. I'm glad I picked this one out of the 10 you gave me. So,
Well, this is
Yeah.
the one that could have been the A's at one point. It was going to be a massive Cisco campus at one point, and the previous developer wanted to do residential here at one point. So,
interesting.
the
Which would
city of
be
Fremont
cool.
definitely got the most out of this land as they could using advanced manufacturing.
Yeah, and I do think it's timely. You as a city, you have a limited amount of non-residential, employment lands, right? And every city has kind of different unique geographies and different challenges and opportunities. For us, we're very fortunate to be able to find areas of the city to accommodate substantial residential growth near transit, near other kind of central amenities, and then be able to kind of keep our industrial areas, sort of pure, so to speak, and not have incompatibilities. But I think ultimately it shows that like sometimes you just need a little bit of like there's a rebirth opportunity, a site that didn't work out or kind of reached its conclusion as one use. It now becomes an opportunity to just really reinvigorate this part of the city, and of course provide a lot of economic and fiscal value. Right.
Oh,
And
I love this because now we're talking about kids, right?
yeah.
About creating the workforce and helping folks. It goes back to the equity part
Yes,
that you
absolutely.
were talking about at the top of the presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things I love about manufacturing is there is it's not just lip service, there is like a real social equity component. Um, Beringer Ingelheim, which is one of our largest biotech firms in the city and has a very large manufacturing presence. 70% of their workforce is immigrant or women, and most of their technicians are making well north of six figures with little to no college education, and in many cases many of them being non-native English speakers, because it is a really skilled job that you need to learn on the job. And we've in part to like support the industries, we've partnered with a number of educational providers, including our local Ohlone Community College, and have built out programs, including our Smart Manufacturing Technology program, their biotech manufacturing program, which is one of just I think 3 in the state. And we've built out these really great partnerships that have really started to move the needle, collectively putting thousands of people into leading edge manufacturing jobs. Next slide, please. In a similar vein, this was something I personally really proud of. We during the pandemic, we saw these massive layoffs from folks in the service and especially hospitality industries, and at the same time, we saw this unprecedented demand for manufacturing, and with many companies now pivoting to respond to the need of the pandemic. Feels like it's really well in the rear view mirror, but in the moment, this was a kind of all hands on deck need, and we helped to basically created this program that placed hospitality workers in on the job learning environments that were also supplemented with online educational certificate programs in advanced manufacturing. And proving out this model kind of in an emergency situation during the pandemic, it ended up being just such a godsend. And we've now been able to scale it. We've brought on about a dozen different companies from the city that have put in their resources to make it free and to provide stipends and transportation and all kinds of things for adults of all, backgrounds looking to get an opportunity, and manufacturing again does provide those meritocracy environments in the workplace. Next slide.
I think we've got just a couple more minutes left.
Yeah, and that's it for me. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Donovan. That's great. I love this program. I think it's really innovative, really interesting. I'm not sure whose idea it was, whoever's idea it was, well done. Because there were a lot of folks suffering during COVID, but I think you've even taken it one step further, which is you've continued with the program. So that's just really inspiring. All right, so here we are at 6:25, and we promised we'd get you out of here at 6:30. Thank you, Donovan. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Adrian. Justin Salters handled the tech for us tonight. We have a short survey because we love feedback. We'd love to hear how you thought this went. There is a 2-minute feedback survey. It's anonymous. And you can use your phone to look at the QR code and then send us your feedback via that. Justin and I are also available to you to meet, to chat, to get on a Zoom, to try to answer your questions and to find the answers to your questions if we don't know what they are. And we're learning about advanced manufacturing right along with everybody on this webinar. So it's really exciting for us to be with you. And then finally, I just want to remind you that we're having open office hours. So between now and the end of the year, we've already had 4 sessions. It's been great. So many of you have come. We have an ongoing Google Doc that has all of your questions recorded. And to the degree that we can answer your questions, our answers in the Google Doc, it's very open and transparent. We're very happy to have you come and say hello on Zoom. If you can, Justin, the office hours, I think, are 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, 4:30 to 5:30.
They
On the
are
second-
4 to 5 p.m.
4 to 5 p.m. on the second and fourth Wednesday. We'd love to see you there, meet you, say hello, collect your questions, and then answer them to our best ability. And I know a lot of you had questions in the chat, some of which got answered as a result of our really excellent speakers tonight, and some of which didn't, but we promise we're going to take all of your questions. We'll put them in our ongoing Google Doc with all of the questions about the project that you've asked us during the open office hours, and we'll get those answered for you as soon as we can. So just a friendly reminder, this webinar has been mostly about advanced manufacturing, less about the project that's proposed in Brisbane, but we hope to bring you more programs, more webinars. In the future, we can talk specifically about the project itself. But given that Justin and I both needed educating on advanced manufacturing, we were so glad that all of our excellent speakers could join us tonight. Justin, anything I'm forgetting to say?
Yeah, Kit, one thing I just want to make sure everyone's aware, the FAQ document that Kit mentioned, if you go to brisbanequarry.com and you click on community engagement up in the top, you'll be able to either scroll down and you can see the FAQs there. So it is on Google Drive. Anybody can have access to that version that's there. And check often, check regularly, if you will, because Kit and I we're working and spending time responding to those questions as we get answers figured out. And then also, just to clarify and make sure everyone is clear, the questions that were asked tonight, we'll be logging all of those and putting them into our FAQ tracker. So please email us. Please also, I would say on the survey, which since I'm the one controlling the slides, I'm going to put that QR code back up here. I believe I've got a question that's open-ended. If there are any other specific topics or things that you're interested in, both in general about advanced manufacturing, we would go ahead and love to be able to do that. And I will live answer this question about the link to the recording Yes, the recording is going to be posted on our website, so you'll be able to find it on brisbanequarry.com under the community engagement.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. And we're giving everybody 2 minutes back at 6:28. And thanks again to Donovan, to Greg, to Adrian. It was so nice to see you all. I'm so glad I wore glasses today because I really wanted to fit in. So it worked out really, really great. I learned a lot. I still have a lot of questions, I'm sure, as the people who are on the webinar with us did, but we'll have you all back and we'll talk in some more detail. Y'all have a good night, everybody out there. Thanks so much. Good to see
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Kit.
you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.